G'day, I'm Eustace Black, author and all-round net fun guy. Welcome to the We Agnostics podcast. I may not believe in religion, but I believe in you.
Welcome to episode 6. As a kid, I never wanted to be an alcoholic. I would be very surprised if there was any child that set that down as a goal for when I grow up, I want to be an addict or an alcoholic. When I grew up, I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to be a person who made a contribution to society. Unfortunately, my alcoholism was a maladaptive response to a pretty messed up situation. What that meant for me was the gap between who I wanted to be, which hadn't changed since I was a child, and the actions that I undertook became wider and wider. Every drink that I took increased the gulf between the person that I wanted to be and the person who was doing the things that I did. So much so that the things that I did were becoming close to the person I was, certainly much closer than the person I wanted to be. Over the thousands and thousands of drinks that I took over my 9 years of drinking, the gulf between the person that I wanted to be and the person that I was becoming became wider and ever wider. I tried to paper over that gap by drinking more. I figured my drinking was a solution to that gap, but it wasn't. It simply got worse and worse over time. I didn't realize that I'd already crossed a line into being an alcoholic. Luckily, AA had some sort of program for me. Now, it wasn't necessarily the 12 steps as most people understand them. It wasn't my solution. It wasn't the 12 steps as most people understand them. That wasn't my solution. My solution was to bring the things that I did into closer alignment with the person that I wanted to be. And luckily, because I wasn't drinking, recovering from drinking, planning to drink, or thinking about drinking, I had more and more time to bring my actions into alignment with the person that I wanted to be. When I finished drinking, I had 3 things. I had a roof over my head, I had a job, which I just barely clung on to, and I had alcohol. And that was the limit of all that I had. When I gave those up, I gained time and I gained space so that I could actually do actions which better aligned with the person that I wanted to be. Part of that was an understanding of what drove my drinking. What drove my drinking was fear. The fear of being alone. The fear of being unlovable. The fear of never having actually done anything worthwhile in my life. And those manifested as boredom and loneliness and depression. So when I gained the time and space to do things that I wanted to do, I started to do volunteer work. I started to help others. I started to think about others first, rather than thinking about myself first, or rather than thinking about alcohol first. And alcohol is a solution to my immediate problems. Waiting was a big part of my recovery. Waiting for things to get better. Not seeking immediate gratification. Not seeking an answer straight away, but rather having the patience to think that maybe answers will come in time if I'm patient. The things that guided my recovery were positive attributes like patience, perseverance, and being willing to give things a go. Not being afraid and not being worried about the outcome. Simply staying in the moment. Very simply, it was things like going to meetings, going regularly, participating fully both before, during, and after the meeting, listening intently, taking note of people and what they said, engaging with them afterwards in a meaningful way, simply not drinking. Then, by doing those things, I could be kind to myself. I'd given myself the time and space to be kind to myself. But most importantly, I'd given myself the time and space to be kind to others. And interestingly enough, it is these attributes of perseverance, persistence, being able to stick to things and being patient with things that are a major characteristic of an interpretation of AA, which is found rooted in Japan, Danshukai. All that got me thinking and made me realise that I have a lot of reasons not to be in AA. In fact, before I went to AA, I thought it was not for me. I thought it wasn't an option that was available. I had listened to Thomas Smith's Atheistically Speaking 3-part podcast series on AA, which concluded that at best and worst, it was a cult. See, I'm not typical of someone in AA, and maybe I'm not typical of people in general. My best thinking did not get me into AA, My best thinking got me 4 degrees and an academic position. I'm an atheist. I have been since I was 14. I don't believe that magical thinking is a good idea. I don't believe in anything supernatural whatsoever. More than that, I don't believe we need anything supernatural. I don't believe we need gods or goddesses. They're simply not necessary to be a good person and to lead a good life. They're not necessary to explain the universe. They're not necessary for anything that I can see. I'm also not into dogma. I'm not interested in closed systems of thought. I think they're dangerous, especially where they have the capacity to explain outside things as bad things through the dogma itself. I simply think that science is a better way to know. Science sets out to prove itself wrong rather than to prove itself right. I don't believe there's any recovery in AA. I don't think it has a program of recovery that works for me. I simply see it as a social club, a good place to go to meet people who are similar to me and spend time with them and talk to them in ways that I can't talk to anyone else. This is not false modesty on my behalf. I think I achieved a lot before I started drinking. My drinking was simply a maladaptive approach to not being able to deal with the life that I had after leaving academia. So why do I go to AA? What's the point? Well, there's kind of one important reason. I'm an alcoholic. It was my way of dealing with the world, and I can't change what I did. I have fundamentally altered my way of thinking, and I fundamentally altered my biology, at least in the short term. More important than that, though, it is a social club for me. It's full of people who have a shared identity. I mean, we say that. We say our name, and then we say our identity. We have a shared sense of our past. We have a shared stock of emotions. We share a sense of our future. More importantly, we share a sense of purpose, and we share hope. That's what I bring to AA, I hope, and that's certainly what I take from AA. It is my social club, but it's a very special social club for people like me. I must admit to being a fan of all things a bit weird, so the following may seem a bit weird. When we're surrounded by a culture, it's hard to see it. It's the water in which we swim, and we are the fish. To see the water, we have to jump completely clear of it, at least temporarily. Now, AA culture is a religious one, and a Christian one at that, and a Pauline Christian one at that. To jump clear of that water, let's propose that AA was developed in a different culture, just as a thought experiment. Let's say a non-Christian culture, maybe a non-religious culture, although that's hard. The Paraha of Brazil appear to be the only non-religious culture of which we are aware. So let's try Japan, a culture with an ambivalent and ambiguous relationship to religion and religiosity. Let's say that AA grew up in Japan, that to get sober one had to be ambivalent about God, or ambiguous about whether gods or goddesses are relevant to human needs, or to simply move between gods and goddesses and religions as required by social conventions. So instead of step 2, being came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, it would read, came to believe that we had a duty to our society to get sober. How different would AA look? What would our cliches be? Instead of let go and let God, would it be, let your family duty guide you? Think becomes, think of your co-workers and family. Of course, we have real-world data about this. In Japan, AA is popular with non-Japanese people and some Japanese people, but far less popular than the alternative. Japanese people in general prefer the all-Nippon abstinence society, Danshukai. Now I wonder, if the positions were reversed, in this sort of situation, how would theists in Western countries feel about it? Countries where monotheism is not only common, but has been normalized as seemingly. No wonder if the position was reversed. How would theists in Western countries feel about it? Countries where monotheism is not only common, but where it's become normalized as seemingly the only option. Now imagine AA in a non-religious country, a non-specific one at that, or as a non-religious organisation. What follows are examples. The two parts of the step can be combined and recombined as needed. I hope that we can explore some hints here for people who might want to go about forming or reinterpreting this step for themselves. Let's say AA was dominated by agnostics when it was set up. In that world, step 2 may read, We recognise that it is not possible to know if gods or goddesses exist, so we made a decision to be better people. An agnostic version might read, we made a decision to recognise that there's no way to even define what gods and goddesses may be, so we turn our will and our lives over to the care of the one life that we know that we have. An atheist version might read, we recognise that there's no evidence or good arguments for the existence of gods and goddesses, so we turn our will and our lives over to the care of AA as an organisation. One formed by scientific skeptics may state that we recognise that magical thinking is dangerous, and we turn our will and our lives over to the care of science, our one, best, most reliable epistemology. I could imagine that in any of these scenarios there would be more hardline members of such groups who would proclaim that you must reject gods and the supernatural or you will drink again. That science could and would prevent your drinking, if sought. Of course, all that's fictional, and as a humanist, I'm not sure that I would see myself saying such things. But it is not so far-fetched. We know that religion is dying out, but alcoholism is not. Both people identifying as religious and religious attendance is on the decline in Australia. Those are patterns repeated across the world to greater or lesser extents. In Australia, the two other issues are relevance and morality. I assume that they have significance in the rest of the world too, although I'm not sure to what extent. In a 2013 survey of self-identified Australian Christians by McQuindley Research, it was found that 47% of respondents do not go to church because it was simply not relevant to their lives, with 26% saying that they don't accept how religion is taught, and 19% of respondents saying that they don't believe in the Bible. An informal poll in 2008 found that 81% of respondents felt that the world would be a better place without religion. A 2012 TV poll on Q&A found that 76% of viewers said that religious belief had 2012 TV poll on Q&A found that 76% of viewers said that religious belief does not make the world a better place. In my opinion, AA must evolve, or it may become extinct. The other option would be to see a takeover and restructure of AA, as outlined above, and there would be great benefit to any of those approaches. There would be great benefit, of course, to any of the approaches outlined above, of course, because all of them would reduce magical thinking. They would make people think better and bring their thinking in line with testable reality. This may be AA's future in a non-religious world where people without religion are the majority. Let's certainly hope that in that world the non-religious treat the religious better than they treated the non-religious when the religious had power. Thank you for listening.
You can now follow us on Twitter at WeAgnosticspod or email us at WeAgnosticspod@gmail.com. We also have a secret Facebook group. Email me for the details.
Thank you for listening to the We Agnostics podcast. Remember, stay sober, go to meetings, and take care of each other and yourself.